Where does Black History Month even come from, and why is it in February? It's not from Uncle Sam, and it's not because February is the shortest month of the year. But I can't tell you about Black History Month without telling you about the life and the legacy of the founder of Black History Month, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. I'm a community teacher. I'm a creative entrepreneur and educator from Brunswick, Georgia. I recently got my degree in Africana Studies from Georgia State University, and I'm here to teach you, your kids, your family, and just to bridge generations and communities and culture through our history. So let's get into it. Now, Dr. Carter G. Woodson was born in 1875 in rural Virginia. He came from a family of people who were legally enslaved but did not live enslaved. His father nor his grandfather lived as enslaved people. They both were hired out, used their labor and their skills to do work all around their area. And it's even stories of his father beating a white man who tried to beat him. So he came from people who were not subjected to the traditional things that they tell us about slavery. He came from people who are already self-reliant, independent, and still humanized. No matter how long they had been under legal slavery, they wasn't going for it. And he lived this throughout his whole entire life. His father actually became a Union Army member, and he made enough money in the war to actually go on to buy 10 acres of land and get a tobacco farm in Virginia. Now that tobacco farm is not only where Dr. Woodson grew up, but he learned things like hard work, self-reliance, the importance of owning land, things that we still need to learn and teach to our children today. He also knew the value of education. Actually, two of his uncles operated a nearby one-room schoolhouse for local children, and they was only able to go to school for maybe 4 months a year. Even still, he did his best to get his education. And after that, as he got into his teenage years, him and his brothers went out to West Virginia like thousands of other African Americans did. They went to West Virginia to work in the mines. Now, while he was in the mines, he ran into somebody very important in his trajectory, Mr. Oliver Jones. Mr. Oliver Jones worked in the mines as well. He had a wide book collection, which he let Dr. Woodson read, and he also opened up his home as a refuge and a third place for the local Black miners who were barred from other institutions that were only for white people. Because of this, Dr. Woodson was able to teach and read and learn to others while his elders were pouring into him and teaching them stories about their life. He even went on to publish many of their stories in his later publications. Eventually, he saved up enough money to go to the Frederick Douglass High School in Huntington, West Virginia, which was the only Black high school in the whole area. From Douglass and Huntington, he went to Kentucky to Berea College to get his education, his first bachelor's degree. He also became the principal at Douglass High School that he had just graduated not too long ago, before going to the Philippines for 4 years as a teacher. After his 4 years in the Philippines, he came back to the United States, got not only his second bachelor's, but a master's degree from the University of Chicago. He then went to Harvard and became only the second African American to get a PhD from Harvard University. Leave it in the comments if you know who the first person was. I'm not even going to tell you. Dr. Woodson was a man who really came from the struggle, who was really community-oriented, who really worked his way up from almost at the bottom of society to someone who had a PhD. Yet, because of his race, because of his standing, because of his mindset and who he was and who he knew he needed to be for his community, he couldn't necessarily find employment within higher institutions. Because of that, he actually first was the principal at Armstrong, which was one of only 2 high schools for Black people in Washington, D.C. And if you can name the other one, make sure you leave it down in the comments. Even as the principal at Armstrong and not really finding work in higher education, he still was doing all of the things that he was supposed to do. He joined the American Historical Association. He was a due-paying member, and yet he still couldn't go to any of the conferences, any of the meetings, because of his race. Now, 1915 was a really big year for Dr. Carter G. Woodson, as well as for Black Americans as a whole. He published his first book, The Education of the Negro, prior to 1861. He also attended the Lincoln Jubilee in Chicago, which celebrated 50 years of freedom in the United States. And this is the year that him and 4 others came together to create the Association for the Study of the Negro Life and History. Colleagues who came together with him were A.L. Jackson, George Cleveland Hall, William B. Hargrove Jr., and James E. Stamps. In 1920, he broke into higher education as the Dean of Liberal Arts at Howard University, a preeminent institution to this day for African American education. And there he actually created the first African American history course at the college level, way before the protests at San Francisco State University, which created my degree, Africana Studies or Black Studies. Dr. Carter G. Woodson made so many contributions to African American history, to African American thought processes, and the way that we were looked at in academia. But he knew that it had to go beyond books, it had to go beyond academia. It couldn't just be in the hallways and in the libraries. He actually became an honorary member of Omega Psi Phi in 1926. Members of Omega Psi Phi were leading the charge to push out what Dr. Woodson had thought up of as Negro History Week. Negro History Week was the second week in February because the birthday of Frederick Douglass and the birthday of Abraham Lincoln, two men who were already super famous in African American culture and life and symbols of African American freedom. Their birthdays were already being celebrated. Dr. Woodson had the idea to turn this week into something where we could not just celebrate the great men of our race, the men who are put in front of us, but we could celebrate the everyday people, everybody who's doing a contribution that may not be written about or may not be remembered. And to this day, that's what we still need to keep in the front of our mind. The everyday people who are doing the work on the ground and not just the famous men. Negro History Week was pretty much an instant success, and it went from city to city, being declared as Negro History Week, a officially recognized thing before in 1976. The United States government recognized it as a national month holiday. Dr. Woodson was a workaholic. He was prolific in his writing and his research. He published many books, many bulletins. He did much work and many contributions to our people. But for him, it was not about him. It was not about him becoming a celebrity or a public figure. It was about actually serving the community and creating lasting institutions. That's the thing that we need to get in our minds today, is not just to build a personal brand, not just to get a bunch of followers, but you need to build something today that your grandkids will see. You need to start a holiday right now that your grandkids will celebrate. You need to plant a seed right now that would be a shade tree for somebody else later. Dr. Woodson was 74 years old when he passed away in his office. He didn't have a wife, he never had kids. His life was the movement, his life was his people. And I'm not telling you to throw your life away and just focus on serving others, but make some art, write a book, film a movie, do something to etch yourself in history. Don't just be on here on social media arguing all day like people like to do. But yeah, man, if you made it to the end of the video, I love you. I know you learned something. Just share this with a friend so they can learn something too. I'm out.